Hi, welcome to the demonstration. Let's begin by finding a reference image. I'll do that by going to sketchfab.com, which is a great website for finding 3D models. And we'll use a 3D reference so that we can really understand the geometry, the three-dimensional volume, form of our reference. I think good search terms here are simple, or maybe the word low poly. But let's try simple first. So as you can see here, there are different 3D models. You can preview them by hovering and moving your cursor. And we're looking for something that is reasonably simple, but also gives some opportunities for ambient occlusion actually to occur. And to explain what I mean, I'll switch to Blender for a second here. So I have a scene with 3 different houses, 3 complexity levels of houses. I have my light source here. The last house is empty, the middle house has the windows kind of carved out, and the first house is just the house shape. So that one, the first one on the left, would not be a good object to draw ambient occlusion for, especially for the complex ambient occlusion. The middle one is better, we will get some occlusion here in the windows. The third one is best, a hollow object. So I'll switch here to cycles, and then instead of the render paths being combined, I can show here only ambient occlusion. And you'll see the difference between especially the second and the third houses here. So the deeper a cavity goes, the darker the ambient occlusion goes. So if your object is too simple and it doesn't have any recesses or cavities, you won't be able to show much ambient occlusion. With that said, let's go back to Sketchfab. So for example, this dino monster would not be so good on the body because there are no cavities, but the mouth of it might be quite interesting to do ambient occlusion for. This food bowl here, there are some spaces between the items of food, and in those gaps we could show occlusion. For my taste, this is a little bit too complex actually. There are many objects here, many surfaces. So I will not use that food bowl as my reference image, but it would have some opportunities to show ambient occlusion. So here's a collection called low poly food that we could go into. And again, we have ice cream here. This is too simple of a surface, not that good. This teacup might work, but it's kind of like the middle house where the windows are only recessed. Sushi here, I think too complex, too many elements. This dish definitely too complex, too many surfaces. These rooms, I think also a bit too complex. It's definitely doable, it just takes a long time. And the purpose of my demonstration here is just to show the steps of the process and not to make you sit through a 5-hour demonstration of me drawing. The milk crate, too simple. The only place to get occlusion would be up here in these folds. Fondue, nice. Okay, so this I like the most so far, this fish, because it has this cutout part on the bottom, where I guess the organs are of the fish. That's kind of like the door of our building here, really being an opening and going in deep. So we would get quite a bit of occlusion down there. Yeah, I might do this. For you, you can look for any topic. Maybe you want to do a character, a portrait, a vehicle, a plant, I don't know. You can look for those search terms and maybe include the words simple or low poly. Low poly means low polygon count, which refers to the complexity of the model here. So once you are in the big view, you can click and drag and rotate this 3D model to any view you want. And I'll take a few screenshots and arrange them on a page that I'll print, just because that's easier for me to record the demo. But you could even work directly from a screen if you like. You can find the view that you like best and then just draw from that. For me, I think I like this view. I'll check down here in the model inspector. There are a few settings, so we can change the geometry view to just a matte cap, which is a bit simpler. We don't have any of the local color information. Wireframe, which you see here, a low poly. These are all polygons, and low poly means there are few polygons. This might be helpful also to really understand where the surface is curving. And then normals, you'll see these little arrows on each polygon indicating the direction of that polygon. Not that useful, I think, for me. Neither is that. That looks crazy. This is a texture reference. So I think I'll do most of my images with the final render and then a few with the wireframe. I'm on a Mac. If you're following this process to create a page to print and you're on Windows, it will be slightly different, but I'm sure you can figure out how to create screenshots. For me, it's holding down Shift, Command, Alt, and then 4. For me, it's holding down Shift, Command, Control, and then pressing 4, which gives me this crosshair cursor. Screenshot. Then I will switch to Photoshop. Make a new document actually here. Go to International Paper. A4 is what my printer prints in, so that is good. And then Command V to paste my screenshots. Now let's do that with the wireframe as well. I will remove the black because I don't want to waste all that ink, and I'll show you how I do that. Now I'm thinking about what other view would be helpful for me to understand when I'm drawing this view. I think something a bit flatter. Maybe like this, so I understand how the fish is lying on this wooden cutting board. And I think I'll do again one with all the colors and one just the wireframe. Let's see, layout wise, I think I have space for one more row, so I'll do that. I'll find a third view. Top down could be nice, or a profile. I guess I will be seeing more of this view, so yeah, let's do a profile like this. And a wireframe. Okay, so the profile is taking up a bit more space horizontally, but we'll go around that by scaling down these two images. And maybe we'll do this just to keep the layout a bit easier to understand. I will invert the background color so it's all black now. So when I select the black, it will be one step instead of 6. Meaning I can do all of the black at once and not work with each individual image. I'm also keeping the scale in mind now. I'll print this on an A4. So my drawing will be... I'm imagining how big my drawing is going to be. If I draw side size from this reference image. I like my drawings on the right of my reference as well, but I think... yeah, I am going to switch them so that the color version is on the right, closer to my actual drawing. I'll scale them down a bit more to make sure my printout is not cutting off the edges of the images, and so my final drawing also is a little bit smaller. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with that as I lay out. I am collapsing all layers to one by pressing Command E. And then removing the black here. There are several ways of doing that. I think I'm going to go to select color range and click the black. I can play here with the fuzziness of how much values close to black I want to include, which will be very, very low. Okay, so that's a bit messy here. We can click Select and Mask, and then turn the radius up. Try Smart Radius, and smoothing slightly. That should give me a bit of a cleaner selection. And because we're changing from black to white, I will shift the edge slightly, so you can see when we go in here. Right, I think we need to add a bit of feather for the edge shift to be actually taking effect. Yeah, so this makes the selection bigger, but I want to go the other way. Let's try that. With all my black selected, I will press Command I, and that black will turn into white. And I think that looks pretty good. So now let us print this page. Command P, or go to File, Print should be somewhere here. I'm always using this shortcut. Right here at the bottom. Okay, that looks good. Let's print. So we have a printout. Now let's going to mount it. Something like this. That looks good, although I don't like this edge down here. I think I'm gonna get stuck there. So let's trim that. Okay, and so that this doesn't move, I am going to attach some sticky eraser on the back of this page. 2 pieces like that should be good enough. Press it in, that should be stable. Now, the tools I'm using are a 2B pencil and a sharp 2H pencil. I have this sharpening pad if I need to sharpen, especially the 2H pencil. And then maybe a mechanical eraser, like this, for some cleanup work. But these are my tools. And I begin the way I usually begin, with the placement stage. So that means finding top, bottom, left, and right. My drawing here is side size, meaning the same size as my reference image. And I'm finding those extremes and placing them. At this stage, I'm also positioning the drawing on the page. So if I want to, I can still move it around very easily, just erasing and redrawing 4 lines. I'm going to measure this with a string, so left to right, that looks a little bit narrow, and top to bottom looks pretty good, maybe a touch short. So let's make it slightly wider, and I do this always by eye first. Draw it by eye, check by eye, make adjustments, and then measure. So I had my best guess before I measured. Now let's double check. Great, now the width looks good. Check the height again. Yeah, so now I've measured probably slightly wider. And this is something maybe I should say. With measurement, there's always a margin for error. So don't trust it too much. Now I'm moving into the big shapes stage. We're building our block in. So I'm simplifying the subject into just general shapes and proportional relationships. Here I place the side of the cut part of the fish, and then also making a halfway mark vertically. And I did that by eye, checked by eye, and now I'm checking with a measuring tool. Slightly too high, so I'm lowering it. And then as I place that on the fish, I see that this white line is lining up with the halfway mark. That's really helpful. So we got halfway vertically. That's helpful. I can see some alignments there. And let's continue with the block in. So from big shapes, I'm gradually breaking it down, introducing shorter lines and therefore smaller shapes, and constantly checking proportions, if there's enough space for all the pieces, the elements of my subject. It's a bit like cutting away from a block of stone, maybe carving out. Here I'm doing a horizontal alignment check. If my line is perfectly horizontal, then points on my drawing should be lining up with points on the reference image. Now I'm getting into some smaller shapes like the fin, and the separation between the top and the side of the base. So it's still block in, but now we have moved on from the big shapes to medium shapes. There are no tiny details yet. Okay, I think we're almost done with the line drawing. Here I'm making a separation from the back there and the fin. I'm working with a 2B pencil still. The lines are fairly thick, and I'm trying my best to keep the drawing clean and easy to understand. In order to start the ambient occlusion pass, I'm going to make a little sketch to conceptually analyze and understand what is happening with the occlusion. So we have a flat disc as the base, and then a tapered cylinder for the body of the fish. And the occlusion is going to be strongest where the body and the base are touching each other. And then there's a gradient getting less and less intense, the occlusion shadow getting less and less intense with increasing distance. So both on the body and on the base, there will be a gradient. Then there's also this opening on the front of the fish, and there will be some occlusion in there, since it is a cavity. And let's go a bit darker, because they are touching, those two surfaces are touching, so we can go almost black at that touching point. And the fin is going to be in there, and I think that's going to be a little bit lighter, because it's poking out toward us. So let's start shading. I'll begin at the darkest point and then create the gradient moving from dark to light with increasing distance. And as I do this, I treat every surface individually. So the side of the fish, the front of the fish, the top of the base, the side of the base. I find it really helpful to go one by one. So here again, I did 2 passes, first a little bit lighter, and now I'm going really to full darkness, as dark as I will be in the final drawing. Because I'm quite confident that those values there, or those surfaces, that area, will get heavy ambient occlusion. So I'm really pushing for it. And this way I also know how to relate all the other tones I'm putting in. Here I'm doing a separate sketch for analyzing the fin in the back, and it's straight and then curves and then is straight again. So there will be a little bit of occlusion between the straight and curved parts as well. Straight, curved, straight. Now, the sketch was very contrasty, so I'm getting rid of it just to keep my drawing clean. And actually, when I'm looking at my paper, at my page, I can mostly see my main drawing and not be so distracted by a high contrast sketch. Adding occlusion to the base now, and again thinking in gradients. It is most intense, most dark, where floor and fish are closest to each other. And then with increasing distance, we have a lighter and lighter tone. Now at the top, it's similar to the small back fin. The top of the fish body is rounding, and there's the plane of the fin next to it. So there will be some occlusion on the fin and some occlusion on the top, where the back is rounding towards the fin. I'm not too concerned about proportions, but here I'm fixing the outline slightly to get closer to the reference image. And I'm redrawing some of the more messy parts now with a 2H pencil, so I'm getting a very sharp, clean line. Especially on the contour, that makes a big difference for the overall look of my drawing. It starts feeling a bit more refined. And redrawing that back fin one more time, and then the base as well, just to sharpen up and neaten up the drawing overall. Here I'm also adding a little bit of occlusion on the side wall of the base. And now, final dot picking, final cleanup, island hunting, evening out the tone as much as I can in the last, let's say, about 10-20 minutes of my process. And here you have my finished ambient occlusion study in pencil.